All right, and we are back to talk a little bit about some feeder series. In this case, we're going to be talking about the Formula 3. Spain was the mid-season mark, so we're going to give our mid-season power rankings. Of course, it's still not a lot of data to roll off of. I don't think the Formula 3 season is long enough, in my opinion. I think they should have 2 more rounds. It should be a 10-round championship, in my opinion. I think that would be a little bit more fair. But we work with what we got, so we're going to talk about Formula 3. It's been a very close year before I actually get into it. Like, for example, one of my drivers actually moved 5 positions pre-Spain to after Spain. I think once I get talking about it, it'll be pretty obvious who and why that has happened. But as always, let's get into it. Roll the intro. So, as always, we are going to start at the bottom and work our way up. We're going to talk about drivers in bunches rather than individualize every driver, because when there is 30 of them, and I'll be frankly dead honest, I don't watch every race. A lot of them I will watch like highlights and stuff like that, but almost all of the numbers and everything I generate here is based off of like simply that, analytical data. You don't need to watch the race necessarily to put it together, except for in the case of whenever there's do not finishes. I do need to watch that to try and evaluate was the driver at fault or not. I do penalize drivers if they cause their own incidents in some of my ratings, but at the same time, if a driver gets taken out in a racing incident or there's like a mechanical issue, they don't deserve to be penalized at all for that, and it basically becomes like a null data point. So with that being said, let's start at the bottom and work our way up. Actually, we kind of got to go over the parameters first. So you can ignore like these boxes right here. We're not going to talk about those ones. I've changed it up to try and simplify things a little bit, but I do have the same basic overalls. We're only going to be talking about 30 drivers. I'm not going to be including James Headley in this, as much as his data was taken into factor. With him only doing one race weekend, there's just simply not enough data to go off of. Meanwhile, on the other hand, at least Zagazeta did complete every other round, so of course he's still being included. And we'll be looking at these green squares here. As much as we do have like the numbers that are like their actual overall ranking, I feel like the numbers that I'm putting in these green squares, which is our rating system, is more accurate. I know that I can't remember what position is, but I do know I have 2 people who actually tied on their rating. So it's a very, very close year. Probably the most competitive year I've seen in Formula 3 as far as I'm ranking it. There hasn't really been anyone who has like majorly stepped out, and I think that's awesome to watch. There's only one driver that has 2 wins. It's been a fantastic year for Formula 3. So these are the parameters, of course, that we go over. Some qualifying information, how they do with like feature race, sprint race, etc. We combine a whole bunch of the positions. We do just take a look at general points, etc. And like I mentioned earlier with the DNFs, if the driver isn't at fault, reliability issues, they're not getting penalized. Meanwhile, if they do cause their own issues, they are getting penalized in my system. And yeah, so sessions where there was DNFs, of course, we're able to use data from other points to try and come up with a reasonable expectation to figure out their information. Yeah. Let's get into it. We're starting at the bottom. So we've got Sophia Florsch, Josh Dufek, Kian Shields, Enter Puvizak, Smith, and Wisnicki. So you'll see based off of actually, I'm gonna point it out early. So I've got the main rating number, and I've also got the number beside it. So this number that I've got beside it is kind of where I predicted the drivers to be preseason. So a couple of these drivers have every reason to be disappointed a little bit. I'd say Dufek and Shields. I think there was a little bit more expectations. I wasn't expecting them to be like race winners or anything like that, but I bet you they were probably wanting to at least be more towards the midfield. And of course, we can't not talk about Sophia Florsch. since she is an Alpine Academy driver, but it is still extremely disappointing. Extremely disappointing to watch. I know she's trying to set a precedent and image, but right now it's not giving the right image. Yeah. Next group. Max Esterson, Zagazeta, Voisin, and Joseph Loke. Of course, like some of these drivers have had moments where they look really good. Like, I've got Joseph Loke down in 24th, but I remember watching him. I think it was Monaco where he just kind of jumped out of nowhere and was very competitive and looked awesome. But still just hasn't had that consistency if I'm thinking of the right driver. It is late at night, and I did actually watch that race just yesterday. I've been a little bit behind on the times. Next group of drivers, we've got Wurz, Sebastian Montoya, Stutzka, and Nikita Bedrin. So I think of these drivers, Sebastian Montoya will definitely be the most disappointed. I think he was expecting to compete at least for podiums and regular points scoring positions, but he just simply has not been there and is kind of showing why the Red Bull team dropped him from their academy. There isn't really much to say. It's been a very disappointing year for Montoya. Next group of drivers, I've got Dunn, Leon, Megatunev, and Stenshorn. So a couple of these drivers I was expecting a little bit more out of. It's looking at Megatunev. I think granted part of that for Megatunev is simply because he's driving for Trident, and Trident just always has a way to elevate their drivers to the next level. And he just simply isn't doing it. I think the speed is there for him. He just does not have the patience. He's causing his own incidents, and that's kind of what's making things go kind of poorly for him. He's just lacking some patience. I think he'll need another year or maybe 2 years in Formula 3 before proceeding on. Next group, we're now going to go in sets of 2. We got Solov and Ramos. Now, it's kind of hard because I'm going to talk about Solov here. I think he's exceeding expectations, but at the same time, I feel like there was probably a bunch of people who would have expected around this kind of results from him. Myself, I did not, but it's kind of torn a little bit on, is he actually exceeding expectations or is he doing as expected? I don't know, but he's having himself a much better year than he was last year, and Santiago Ramos, he's done decent. Nothing absolutely spectacular, and it's kind of unfortunate what just happened to him in Spain, getting taken out by his teammate, but that's racing sometimes. Next group, we've got Mary Boya and Lawrence Van Hopens. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but we're going to talk about the Dutch driver there. I believe he's Dutch, based off of that name. Yeah, he's been exceeding expectations. I do know ART has been a competitive team in the past, but they hadn't really been last year. So I think for that reason, my expectations for him were kind of low. And he's done excellent and been regularly competitive for the last few weeks, too. Next grouping, I've got Christian Mansell and Tim Tramnitz. Tramnitz is probably a little bit disappointed in his results so far. I think even for a rookie, he was probably wanting to be higher. It's nothing really bad per se. For a rookie, it's still a pretty good season actually, but I just think he was wanting more. Christian Mansell, he's basically doing as expected. He's doing pretty good, has had himself some competitive moments. He's got a pole position now, has had a couple podiums. But yeah, just not quite that top level consistency that he's probably hoping for. He still has an outside chance to continue to move up the ladder, but I think he's wanting more from himself. And now we start going into individuals. This is actually my driver who I had moved 5 positions in my rankings from before Spain to after Spain. Before Spain, I actually had Mini at number 1, but Spain was a very bad weekend for him. I've got it tagged as his worst performance, where in the feature race, I think if he finished 21st, he was regularly losing positions, just did not have the speed at all, and didn't really have a good qualifying, and then he took himself out in the sprint race. I know he was going for a move and was involved with another driver, but he's definitely at fault for that. He kind of turned in on, I can't even remember who the other driver is, but Mini turned in on them, and that did give him a penalty in my system, which, for as close as things have been, dropped him down 5 spots. Next, we're going to move on to Dino Bogdanovic. Nothing really too exciting. He's probably also disappointed in his results so far. He's down in P5 in the standings. He's definitely a driver who's wanting to compete for the championship, especially as that Ferrari junior driver. I would say even more so than Behrman. In my opinion, Bogdanovic was kind of like the next Ferrari stud. Like, I didn't really have... Like, I thought Behrman was good, absolutely, but I felt like Ferrari were more or less trying to target Dino as their next guy. But right now, he's not kind of looking like it. I don't think he's looking bad at all. He's got, like, in Australia, he looked fantastic. Imola, he looked great. And his worst performance was Bahrain, where he had himself bad luck, in my opinion. I can't remember. I feel like he had pole position or something like that. I think he had reverse pole position in like the sprint race or something like that, and the car like failed to get off the line, and he still had himself a very fantastic recovery in that race. It's still technically his worst performance of the season so far. Yeah, let's move on next to P4 in my rankings. I got Ollie Goethe. He has just been basically the definition of consistency this season. Like, he's got himself a win and 3 podiums, but I don't think there's been any races where he's really done poorly. He hasn't done quite as excellent as some others, but he's had himself a very, very, very good season so far. I fully expect him to get promoted to F2 next year. Next up, Luke Browning. I wouldn't say the same thing as Ollie Goethe because Luke Browning has shown some inconsistency, in my opinion. He's shown some amazing, amazing speed, but he's also shown some inconsistency where he's managing to get that performance in the future races, if I'm remembering correctly. But during the sprints, I think he's trying to do too much a little bit, and that's caused him some issues. Yeah. His top performance, was excellent in Bahrain, decent in Monaco. Not as good as in Australia, but he's still got himself a win and 2 podiums, and he's tied. Well, he's not tied. He is in P2 in the standings. It's a very close championship right now. Then in P2, I put Arvid Lindblad. Definitely the top rookie this year. He's been fantastic. The first driver to get multiple wins. He's also got like an additional podium to go along with it. And outside of that little incident in Monaco during the sprint race, he's had himself a very, very good season. He could very much be a one and done into Formula 2 next season, depending on Red Bull's promotion and what they decide to do. But I think he's on a path right now to be competing for the championship and definitely for promotion into F2. Of course, that leaves at number 1, Leonardo Fornaroli. He's just been like the most consistent driver like throughout. He's got the most podiums. I don't think he actually even has a single win yet. Yeah, he doesn't. But he's just been the most consistent driver. He hasn't got himself really into any sort of altercations. He's been fantastic and is probably going to get himself a seat next season in Formula 2. With which team, who knows, since he's not on anyone's academy. But he'll probably see himself move up. That could be very well he goes to the Trident F2 team. Maybe he takes the spot of like Versure or something like that next year. Then, of course, we have my where I now sort them into their color codings. So Fornaroli, absolutely, he's probably going to get promoted. I've got Lindblad, Browning, Goethe, Bogdanovic, Mini, and Mansell, all as the next drivers kind of lined up probably to get promoted. I'd say of that group, I'd say 5 of those 6 are probably definitely going up next season. Williams will elevate Browning. Red Bull will elevate Lindblad and Goethe. Alpine will probably elevate Mini. Ferrari will probably elevate Bogdanovic. Mansell's kind of the wild card. He doesn't necessarily have any associations with any teams. I think he's got himself some good sponsorship, though, so I can see himself getting promoted next year as well. Meanwhile, all of these cars in white, I think they need more time. I'm trying to remember who here is a rookie and who isn't. I know Tramnitz is, Van Hopens, Stenshorn, Wurz, Megatunif, Dunn. They're all having themselves pretty good, decent seasons, just not quite excellent. I think Boya will be gone at the end of this year. Um, I think Leon just hasn't really shown enough. I think Montoya will be gone at the end of this year. I think Montoya. I see him as a driver who's probably going to go and target IndyCar next, simply because of his family's association with that sport. I think I see him going the North America way. And then my drivers way at the bottom in the need to improve if they're a rookie or get themselves onto a better team or just completely leave the sport like if they're not a rookie basically and they're in that category, it's very bad luck. I'm looking at Wisnicki, Smith, Florsch, Bedrin. Yeah. Their time is probably done. There isn't really much room for advancement for those guys unless they're paying a crap load of money. Looking at like Kushmini style. And then yeah, we're gonna go over my drivers who are kind of exceeding expectations and disappointing. So yeah, Van Hopen, Lindblad, Leon, Bedrin, and Solov have all actually been doing quite better than expected. And of course, the most disappointing drivers. The top four are easy: Dufek, Shields, Megatunov, and Montoya. But then I also put Gabriele Mini, since I think for him, the expectations are basically championship or bust. Not that Alpine probably have the same expectations, but he's an extremely good driver that if he's not first or second in the championship come the end of the season, he's going to be mad and very disappointed, and it'll be a tough path forward from there. Yeah. So that's going to end my mid-season rankings for Formula 3 so far. Let me know what you think, and yeah, I would love to hear your opinions. Who would you put higher? Who would you put lower? Is there anyone you're keeping your eye on for the remainder of the season? Let me know. Thank you.